Hey friends, this is Father Jeremy Sechrist. I'm honored and delighted to be able to be speaking with you today. First of all, happy Catholic Schools Week, and I want to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the history of St. Peter's School, a history of which you are part of. We're standing up here on the top of the newer part of our school, which was finished in 2006. But did you happen to know that there was an even older part of the building? Let's start over on this side with this section of the school that was built in 1889. Now, that's not when our school started. Our school was established in 1854. And so if you're good at math, you'll notice that within a few years, our school will be celebrating 175 years. So the school was originally a small structure right on the corner of High Street and Broadway. And then in 1889, this portion of the school was constructed. And at that time, it was first grade through 8th grade. But then there was the desire to continue the education of everybody in the Catholic faith. And so in 1931, this next section was added on as the beginning of the high school. And so we had a high school here at St. Peter all the way up until 1956. And it was at that time that Helias High School was finally opened. So that's a little bit of the history from the rooftops here at St. Peter. And friends, there's another building here on the St. Peter campus that we can oftentimes forget about. Back in the 1950s, early 1950s, the Vogelweide building was built, and at that time it housed the first graders, and then later on a new chapter in the history of St. Peter's School began, because there was a recognition that some need a little bit more help in learning. And so the Vogelweide Learning Center began in 1964, named for Monsignor Vogelweide, one of my predecessors here at St. Peter. And for many years, it was housed in that building. Currently, the preschool is in that building, built in the 1950s. Friends, we're standing again on the roof of the school, overlooking our beautiful church. As some of you might know, our church building, is the third church that has been constructed here. The first church building was constructed in the early 1830s, and it used to exist over where the governor's mansion currently stands. Later on, a more solid brick building was established, the second church, and that was at the corner of High Street and Broadway. And then in 1883, this current building construction began. This portion of the building, of our church building, is called the apse, and it wasn't always there, because in about 1890 there was a tornado that came and it hit the church and made part of this west wall collapse. And so they rebuilt and they extended the size of the church, giving us this portion of the building. Dear friends, we're now inside in what is currently the library of the 1889 portion of the building. Did you happen to know that back in 1911, the state capitol building was struck by lightning in February of that year, and it burned? And so for a number of months, the House, the legislature, met in this library. At the time, this was a large auditorium. There was a stage on this north end, and it was used as the meeting place for the legislature. I hope that you can appreciate the great history that this building holds. So, a question for you. What do you think the first indoor sport at St. Peter's School ever was? Some of you might think it was maybe archery, maybe it was basketball. It was actually bowling. We're in the basement, the very bottom floor of the 1889 portion of the school. Down here, when it was originally built, we had the cafeteria on the east side, along with the kitchen, and this is where the meals would be served. And then on the other side, as best as we can tell, that's where they had a bowling alley. So before you think that basketball is the most important sport, just remember the history of bowling. Hey friends, we're now in the newest cafeteria here on campus. Did you happen to know that this would be the third cafeteria here at St. Peter's School? The first cafeteria was in the 1889 portion of the building, and then later it was moved over to the Salinger building, which was constructed in 1937, and then in 2006 this cafeteria was completed. So every time that you come down for chili and for cinnamon rolls and everything else, just remember the history of this place. Hi friends, we're now standing in what is now referred to as the Salinger Hospitality Center. Some of you might remember that many years ago, this was the second cafeteria here at St. Peter's School. And even before that, it was also the location of the second bowling alley here at St. Peter. We had about 4 lanes that for many, many decades provided entertainment and opportunity for parishioners to come together. Hi friends, we're now in the chapel here at St. Peter Church. Some of you might remember that as the school continued to grow, they were running out of space. And so back in the 1950s, it was decided to make the chapel into a number of classrooms. Some of our parishioners that are still alive today can remember going to first grade in what is now the chapel. There used to be someone buried down here. It was the third priest, the third pastor of St. Peter Parish, Father Mers, that used to be buried here in the chapel. When it became classrooms, it was decided that it'd be best to reinter him at St. Peter Cemetery. Hey friends, we're now in the base of the church steeple. What we have right in front of us here is what's called a clock table. The bells that are in the steeple here, as well as the 4 clocks, used to be controlled by a totally mechanically operated system. It was powered by weights, like a big grandfather clock, and from 1886 up until the 1940s, when the clock mechanism was electrified, everything was powered from right here. And there used to be shafts that would transmit that energy up to the clock and to the bells. Hey friends, we're now above the vaults of church. No, it hasn't snowed up here, but this is all new insulation that has been added during the past year. As you look around this area above the vaults of church, you notice the size of the timbers that hold up our church. During the past year, a whole new roof was put on church, and so it was at that time that we reevaluated the whole roof structure and did some more work up here. Yet another great view of the history of our parish. Hey friends, we're now higher up in the church steeple. We're right below the 4 bells that are hanging in the tower here at St. Peter. Does anybody happen to know their names? Each of them was dedicated with a particular name. The largest bell is dedicated to St. Peter, then the second to St. Joseph, the third to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and then the fourth and smallest bell to Blessed Mother Mary. The 4 bells together have a weight of about 8,000 pounds. Years ago, they used to swing, but now they're stationary, and with the new control system, they ring every quarter hour. Hey friends, we're back down in the main body, the nave of the church here at St. Peter. As I mentioned to you before, the apse of the church was added about 1895 after the tornado. It was also during that time that the carved wood altars were constructed. As you are probably aware, this church is historically very significant in the life of the Diocese of Jefferson City, because in 1956 up until 1968, St. Peter Church was the cathedral, the mother church of the Diocese of Jefferson City. Dear friends, we're now standing in the sanctuary of St. Peter Church. And located here is what is called the coat of arms for the first bishop of the Diocese of Jefferson City, Bishop Marling. Every coat of arms brings together the family lineage and the symbolism of the family, along with the symbol of the diocese. And so in this case, we have the Diocese of Jefferson City on the same shield as the family, the Marling family. Underneath is his motto, Per sanguinem crucis, by the blood of the cross. So St. Peter Parish, again, was the first cathedral of the Diocese of Jefferson City and continues to be very important within the life of the church. Hi friends, I'm sometimes asked, where exactly do I live? Well, I live right next to the church here in the rectory. This rectory here at St. Peter was constructed in 1885, and it was from this front porch that Monsignor Salinger, on that fateful February night in 1911, it was from this porch that Monsignor blessed the firefighters that were going over to the state capitol at the time to fight the fire that eventually destroyed it. I hope you can appreciate, once again, the great history of our parish and school.